Welcome to Level Table Live. I'm Joey Seeber. This is Level Legal's monthly live stream that discusses the human side of technology. As usual, I'm co-hosting with Daniel Bonner. Excited to have you here as we explore two emojis and beyond, Matt Mahon on IG, barbecue, and the challenge of algospeak. By the end of our time today, we'll discuss if the thumbs up emoji counts as acceptance to form a contract, smart information government practices, and what algospeak means. A special episode because Matt is not only an industry thought leader, but he's also our new Director of Business Development at Level Legal. So welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Joey. It's an honor to be here.
Matt, I'm looking forward to this.
First of all, Matt may be the only sales lead in legal services that has a math degree. He grew up East Coast, West Coast guy, grew up in Sonoma Valley, which explains why he loves the San Francisco Giants, the Warriors, and the 49ers. We hired him anyway. Now he's in Florida, a 30-minute drive from the Atlantic Ocean. More than 15 years as a sales leader, most recently with TrustPoint One and before that at Ricoh. He's also a go-to speaker on e-discovery, on emojis, on all manner of topics. He got one of the most impressive CVs or resumes that I've ever seen in terms of the number of articles that he's written and times that he's spoken. Most recently, he spoke at the University of Florida e-discovery conference at their law school. And so we'll be spending a lot of time today on that subject matter, practical advice for law firms and legal departments. But for now, let's start with some basics, Matt. Your last name is spelled M-A-H-O-N, which makes me want to say Mahon. There's a famous rodeo, Larry Mahon. That makes me want to say it that way, but that's not quite right, is it?
No, it's man. So think of Mick Man without the Mick. So I'm sure somewhere back in the day I may have been a McMahon. It got dropped. It's Irish. There's also a Spanish cheese called man, but I don't come from Spain.
All right. Well, speaking of names, Doug Austin of eDiscovery Today sent a timely question with his registration, so we'll just dig right into that. So here's the question. Is the plural of emoji, emojis? Emoji? What do you think?
Well, my preference is emoji, but both are technically correct. So it's a great survey question in terms of which one people prefer. But I use emoji, but if you use emojis, that's okay.
So how did you get into emojis?
We created an IoT, Internet of Things, CLE back in 2016. Actually, the first presentation was in April of 2016. So now it's been 8 years. We had about 50 minutes of content. Think of back then, IoT was still relatively new. So we were talking about emerging topics that can impact discovery. And we had 10 more minutes of content. And I thought, hey, what about emoji? I think they could be a challenge. I started using emoji more in my personal communications. And initially I was told that was stupid, but obviously I disagreed. And as I dug into it more and more and did some research, I realized, man, this really is going to be problematic and already is. And so that's really what got me into it. And then from a 10-minute segment in IoT presentation, it became half of the presentation. So it was half IoT and half emoji. And then emoji just took over.
All right. What about different areas of emojis and gifs and distinguishing between them?
We start with emoji. Well, I guess before that, it was emoticons. Emoticons were invented in 1982, emoji in 1999. And now I feel like GIFs are the more common, cool, hip way of emoji, but just used in more communication. So it's important to identify those in cases if they are being used. Goes back to custodial interviews and finding out what types of chat applications custodians are using, but then having a review protocol to ensure those are understood because it could change the context of an overall text string or communication string. Additional memes, same thing.
Let's just say you're working on a matter where you anticipate that emojis, GIFs, or memes may be at issue. Talk about strategically how to approach that from a best practices perspective. Where would you start?
Definitely start with the custodian interviews. Identify what do they use for chat applications, what off-channel communications are they using, and then are they leveraging emoji to communicate, and what do they mean? Do they have a certain dictionary for it? And then you got to go through, and some custodians might be deceptive. They may not tell you everything about all their communication strings and how they're communicating. So you got to then leverage technology to identify where emoji exists and then create a review protocol around it. The human element of investigation still comes into play heavily here. And it's really being inquiring and understanding and maybe knowing what you don't know and asking a lot of questions where you see emoji and text strings. What are they trying to communicate here, or are they trying to hide something?
I wanted to come back to the emojis as a contract acceptance. Is a thumbs up emoji, for instance, valid as an acceptance of a contract?
I'm not an attorney, but the answer is it depends. It certainly can. Doesn't mean it does. We'll start with Lightstone v. Zintex as a case out of New York in 2022. And this is where a plaintiff had purchased a little over $2 million worth of PPE from the defendant back in April of 2020. The defendant didn't deliver on the order, and the plaintiff canceled the order, and thus what's at issue here was the refund. So there was a text string between the parties that was discussing the refund. The plaintiff had summarized in a text, here's 4 payments, dates, etc., that they would expect for a full refund. Later on in that day, the defendant did respond with a thumbs up emoji, and the plaintiff had argued that thumbs up emoji constituted a signature, an agreement to the refund with the 4 payments that they had summarized. The judge questioned that, however, because 9 minutes prior to that thumbs up emoji being sent, the defendant had categorically asserted that he would not sign any document related to the refund. So now the thumbs up emoji comes in later, what changed in 9 minutes? So the judge ended up ruling that the case could not be summarily decided based on that thumbs up emoji. So in this situation, a thumbs up emoji being contract acceptance, no. However, that brings us to the case that really hit home and was all over social media, the news, that emoji can drive contract acceptance, and that's the Southwest Terminal v. Achter Land and Cattle case that was in 2023 out of Canada. And this situation was very different because the parties had actually had a business relationship, a historical one, where orders had been approved via text message in the past, which matters, right? It changes context. Southwest Terminal had signed a contract for Achter to sell them 86 metric tons of flax. They took a picture of this contract with their phone and then texted it to Achter saying, please confirm the flax contract. Not the way I would typically do business, but doesn't mean that it drives contract acceptance. And Achter replied with a thumbs up emoji. Well, Achter did not deliver the flax. Prices of materials and raw goods do increase at times, and they did here for flax. And the Southwest Terminal claimed that they had 82,000 Canadian dollars in damages associated to not receiving the flax and the price increases. So Achter explained the thumbs up emoji response and was saying that, hey, I was simply confirming that I'd received the picture, received the contract, and I was expecting to receive a fax of the contract or an email of the contract that contained the terms and conditions for review and signature. However, the judge said, look, based on balance of probabilities here, how they've done business in the past, and all the background information, any individual would come to the objective understanding that the parties had reached a consensus item, and just like they had done on numerous other occasions in contracts. So in this situation, the answer to your question is yes, a thumbs up emoji can be acceptance of a contract.